What's up? You know what time it is, 9 o'clock from the forum. And tonight we're bringing you 2026 rookie sleepers, the people that you need to be targeted in the back half of the draft to change your dynasty leagues. Let's go. What's up, fellas? Got a crew in the house tonight, bringing the heat. Rookie breakdown, deep sleepers. It's time. Look, let me tell you, this is like my favorite part of dynasty draft season is like the late round. Like, everybody, once you get into the draft, like those third and fourth round picks, they're like dishing them off. Like, sure, yeah, you can have them. I don't really care. The guys I want are gone, and I'm like, oh, this guy like has like some real potential and he's still sitting there. I'm trying to like get that late round grab with the potential. Like last year, one of my targets, Isaac Tesla, we got a minimum view of him this year, but for the work, the production, especially touchdowns, was everything that I could have hoped for. Now how that actually turns out during the season as the careers go and people develop, sure. But you're always looking for the late round gems. We saw it. Sam Laporta went in most drafts in round 3, as did Puka Nacua. Some drafts went round 4. Like these are the guys that we're targeting. And for you viewers, hit the like, hit the sub. This is what we're talking about tonight. We're trying to bring the heat. These guys, I know, Bradley, Greinberg, Dan, you guys have been digging. I know you've been digging into it. I've seen the rookie prospect guy. We'll throw a few pages of that up as we get through this. But I know that you've got some heat for the viewers out there to help them get ahead of the game. And especially for dynasty rebuilders, like the couple of first-round picks that you may have traded all your assets away to get are not going to win your league, right? So you got to win in the late round draft. And I'm sure Mike, Bradley, Dan, y'all can speak to that. But outside of that, how's it going tonight, fellas? You ready to drop the heat? I'm sure the listeners are ready for it.
I just want to say, 1 minute into the show, and you had to drop an Arkansas reference. I'm keeping track for the over unders for the following episodes. Okay, that's all I'm doing.
I missed that voice, Dan. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you this upcoming week. We're going to be going live Thursday night, Friday night, all weekend, giving the viewers what they need. And that's the live coverage. And Bradley going to be joining us as well. It's going to be a great time. And I missed that tender voice of yours, Dan. It's great hanging out with you in person once again, buddy.
Love being here with you, Mike. Let me just give you guys the full rundown since we are kicking off the show, and then it is coming up on Thursday. So we're going to drop it on 7:30 at FF Advice Net on YouTube. Make sure you go ahead and check it out. We'll be hanging out all night long, but we're going to have Dr. Brian Scott coming on. We're going to talk a little bets. We're going to get fantasy football reactions, NFL reactions, everything in between coming from you, from FSAN. Bradley, what's going on, man?
Hey. Here to talk some ball. Excited for these late round sleepers. And this is the calm before the storm. Like the top 30 visits have all pretty much been like they've gotten in. The reports are in. Tyson had his workout today. Twitter lost its mind. Like this is it. This is the time we've all been waiting for months since the Super Bowl. This is like almost fantasy football Super Bowl in a sense that like we get to find out. Well, even more so, it's not even a Super Bowl. It's Christmas because we're unwrapping the presents on Thursday. We're so excited. We're finding out where these landing spots are and which teams are filling in empty spaces, what we actually can believe from the coaches and the GMs, all the offseason storylines. Teams tell the truth in the draft. And so we find out what the truth is on Thursday night.
Dude, I love that because there's so many narratives out there. This trade, that trade, like, oh, this player could go here. The Titans are going to take Jeremiah Love early in the draft. Like, the Giants don't like Scattaboo. They're going to take Jeremiah Love in the draft. It's like you get all the narratives. You get the clickbait. And I agree. It's time. Like, we're excited. I saw a mock today and they were like, Dallas traded up. And I was like, Dallas never trades up. If anything, they only trade down. Like, when have you ever had a Dallas Cowboys draft where you were like, oh, dude, this is the bomb? No, it never happens. Somehow Jerry Jones is sitting at a table and everybody leaves the night going, okay, again, but let's kind of start digging into some of these sleepers. We got 13 people tuned in right now. Appreciate it. Hit that like button. Share the video. Got some people in the chat. Albert, what's up, fellas? Dane, heavy hitters on the forum tonight. BHS Cardinal said, unwrapping presents. Yes. Go Yachty in the chat. Let's go. And right off top, there was a notification before the show even started, and it was like Bryce Lance cover photo. Interesting. Mike, I know that this is one of your guys. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about Bryce Lance, maybe where you think he's going to be going, why the heck you're targeting him. Give us the tea.
Well, I love this. Bryce Lance is one of my guys because I don't get exposed to a whole lot of college football up here, in Canada, and North Dakota State is right along my border. So I get to hear all about Bryce Lance and Cole Payton and, the Christian Watson days. And I'm sure Bradley, is, familiar with those as well, being, a Packers fan. But Bryce Lance here, he dominated the FCS. The competition, I know it was a little bit weaker in 2025, but back-to-back 1,000-yard season, posting 51 receptions, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 21 yards per catch, while earning an elite 89 overall PFF grade, 10th among the qualifying wide receivers. Huge numbers here, average 6.7 yards after the catch, very few drops on his targets, showcasing, reliable hands, ball tracking, and then came the NFL Combine where he exploded with a 4.34 40-yard dash, a 1.49 second, 10-yard split, a 41-inch vertical, and an 11 broad jump. So he's posting great athletic scores, and he wasn't playing the most the highest competition there, but when you're playing those competitions, you're going to show out, and you have to, similar to like a Ted Hurst, who's getting a little bit more steam right now. And I think that Bryce Lance is the kind of under the radar guy that you should be looking at. Strong contested catch, great at the high point, massive catch radius. So there's some weaknesses here. We're going to, see what that competition is going to translate to the NFL corners. His route polish and release could use some refinement. And that age, people are always worried about that age, 23 plus here. The lack of Power 4 experience, is going to, temper his floor. But overall, he's a guy that I'm targeting in rounds 3 and 4 in rookie drafts. That's where his sweet spot is, and give him some draft capital. He could be, next in line to be, similar to that Christian Watson outcome here. So looking good. I really like Bryce Lance and where he could be.
Well, you see on the screen, that is the write-up from our 2026 NFL Rookie Prospect Guide, which is linked down below if you want to get a copy, where we break down a ton of the top 60 prospects. We have an update coming post-draft, so get that copy. It's again, linked below, or you can find it on Amazon. Dan, is it just me, or does it feel like somebody from North Dakota State University gets steamed up every year for some reason? Now, usually it's a quarterback, but like here we got a wide receiver. Are you buying what Mike is putting down?
I mean, they are the Alabama of the crappy colleges of the world. So I understand why that they get hyped up to some degree. And this has nothing to do with, as a 49ers fan, I absolutely hate Trey Lance and everything to do with Trey Lance, and therefore his brother. Nothing to do with that whatsoever. This is not being biased, I promise you. Look, Bryce Lance, I don't think there's a wide receiver in the world who's benefited more from Christian Watson being a hit for 8 games out of the season every single year than Bryce Lance has. Because great, he's big, he runs fast, he jumps high, he has a big catch radius. Awesome. He can't run routes. He doesn't do it against great competition. He only started producing when he started turning 23 years old. There's a lot of red flags with Bryce Lance, but at the same time, we're here talking about deep sleepers, and the whole premise of deep sleepers is the fact that there's going to be a lot of red flags. They're going to go later. So, Mike, I'm with you. Look, if you're going to take an upside hit, why not it be with a guy who is athletic at the very least? So this is not me poo-pooing on that in any kind of capacity whatsoever. But I do find it funny that we have a wide receiver from North Dakota State and we have a quarterback who, as of late, has been getting pumped up quite a bit in Cole Payton as well from North Dakota State. Again, when you're the Alabama of the crappy schools, you know, someone's got to notice.
Love it. Mike, you got a comment there? You look like you're about to say something.
No, I was wondering where Dan was going with that, because I was like, he's not like a top guy for me, but I think as a sleeper there, and then he comes and, you know, makes me feel a little bit better about my outcome there. So yeah, I agree with that too. You know, he's not a guy I'm picking in the second round. I'm not going to take a stab there. I'm looking more in the 4th round right now for him, and he's got some, you know, metrics that I like to see, and, you know, some athleticism as well. So maybe not just bet on that at this stage. So.
No, love it. Joe Blocko in the chat. We here. Appreciate you tuning in. Hit that like button. Look, y'all share this video. Let's get it going. As you can tell already, there's going to be some heat drop tonight. And we're going to go over to Bradley. Bradley, your first person that you wanted to highlight tonight didn't even make our first edition of the Rookie Prospect Guide. So when I think deep sleeper, that's what I'm thinking, the guy that nobody even thought about including. So tell us a little bit of who that is and why.
Well, even before I get into this player, I'll tell you what, there's a player behind me. His jersey is right behind my head. He won me hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just a few years ago because I identified a very, very deep sleeper, a very deep sleeper. He ended up, you didn't need another tight end to win your league. You just needed big Bobby Tunyon. That's right. I called the Tunyon deep sleeper many, many moons ago. And so his jersey is right behind me as proof. Nevertheless, this deep sleeper was just named by Adam Schefter as a running back, not a wide receiver. Ooh, we're all intrigued because the dual threat ability is tantalizing. You want your running backs to be catching passes out of the backfield. That is how you get fantasy points in PPR. Eli Heidenreich, the Navy midshipman. Oh, baby. 5'11", 197, 90th percentile 40-yard dash, 98th percentile agility score, a 100th percentile target share among running backs in this class. He can do it all. 84 PFF rush grade, 94 PFF receiving grade. But here's the thing. When I've been doing this for a while, and from an analytics perspective, one of the flags for me, one of the green flags I want to find in a prospect is that they are improving every year. I want to see that. And this player continued to improve every year he was on the field. He's going to be 25. I don't care. Every running back now is old. It's the RJ Harvey pathway. Just because they're already at their peak, that's fine. The NFL is adjusting. I'm not worried about that. But he's going to be very interesting when he's drafted in the 6th or 7th round, and he can just do it all. So we're here for this. I love a lot of things about Eli Heidenreich, but he's a deep sleeper that people need to keep their eyes out for.
So I feel like that one maybe even like deep 4th round. Joe Blacko in the chat said, brought a question, what if he gets deployed though?
Deployed where?
I'm not
Overseas?
sure how that works.
I think he's
No, to war. What if he gets deployed to war? That's what I gathered out of that.
he gets 100 points every week. That's what he gets.
He's going to be starting for the Army or the Navy. Or
You get,
I feel like it's like, I work in the car business. Everybody goes, do I get a military discount? I feel like in my leagues, I'm like, do I get like a military?
no, there you go. I love it.
Like,
no,
my league get an automatic extra 5 points a week or something.
Joe Blacko, in all seriousness, that's why they made taxi squads. All right, that's
Yeah.
right there.
Oh, he's a perfect stash for your taxi squad.
Yeah, exactly. So you're fine.
Love it. Well, Dan, you had several in there too, and we're just kind of roll. I know last week you were hyping up on a player pretty hard in Tanner Koziol, or I think that's how you pronounce the name. Don't let me mess it up. But tell us a little bit about that. Why should we be targeting him? And like, what is the draft area which you think you probably need to grab this guy for it to matter?
So, first of all, he's probably going to go early day 3, which as a 6'7", 247 tight end that we don't get to see a lot in this league.
Sorry.
Yeah, as much anymore. Like we don't get to So when you got a big guy like that, automatically he becomes a red zone threat, right? But he's not just a red zone threat. At 6'7", 247, guess what? He came out in the upper echelon of my athleticism percentile. Why? Because we put height and speed score together. And he was just under 2 yards per route run in his collegiate career. He was just under 27% target share as a tight end with an over 83 route grade, with 27.4% targets per route run, with a 27.4% touchdown share. This guy had 97 targets, 74 catches, 692 yards, and 6 touchdowns. On Operation Domination, we just had our tight end episode this past week. Go ahead and check it out. We talked about archetypes. And the archetype that Tanner Koziol falls into is that hybrid archetype. And that's the second best archetype that you could possibly be in. Why? Because you're a tight end who doesn't just get lined up on inline, on attached to the line of scrimmage. You are detached at least 50% of the time. He was 49% in the slot, 40% in line. At 6'7", he has the body mass of which he could build out. This is a 3-down tight end who already has receiving chops. You want to know what his comps came out to in his production profile here in my model? Michael Mayer, Aronde Gatson, Jake Ferguson, Charlie Kolar, and last but not least, Sam Laporta. So this is a guy who can actually give you the athleticism and the body style of what you're looking for in a double-digit touchdown type of tight end. You talked about Robert Tonyan. Guess what? He's more athletic than Robert Tonyan with the red zone chaps. So all he has to really do is go early in day 3. And you're going to be looking at Tanner Koziol probably somewhere in your 4th round of your not in your mock drafts, in your actual rookie drafts when they come circling back around again. And the beautiful thing about tight ends when you take them late is that they can wait and sit on your taxi squad and or the end of your bench for the next 3 years. And guess what? He's going to have an opportunity to still hit. If you're a running back, you're a receiver, you're a quarterback, and you haven't hit in your first 3 years of your career, there's pretty much practically zero chance you're ever going to be a fantasy asset. But not with tight ends. They are the gold of the stock market. You want to invest in them and wait for it to pop later on. So that's why I'm big on Tanner Koziol.
You know, I love the breakdown. And honestly, because for me, tight end is a position I notoriously win on in the 3rd and 4th rounds of my rookie drafts. Like, rarely do you have a tight end, even when you take early, that they just blow up year 1. I often am able to grab people in round 3, in round 4. You even look at Trey McBride, right? Trey McBride's looked at, tight end 1 through 3 at least, if not 1 or 2 in the league right now. And he was late round 2, in drafts. And really that even got pushed back later on in this year after drafts as the narrative continued to move that he wasn't going to be the guy, right? So like you can win really big in the tight end position room late in your drafts. And I mean, I love it. That's typically like my 4th round grab is always a tight end. Like you talk about Theo Johnson, like last pick of the 4th round, nobody's even thinking about him. Jackson Dart and him looked like they were developing some kind of rapport. Now you could say there's a little bit coming in to mess that up this year, But, you never know. And so, like, I think that that's a high probability hit by position at tight end late in your rookie draft. So love that breakdown. Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you a little bit here, because shifting positions outside of essentially the top two, maybe even really just the top one, there's a lot of gray area in this position. A lot of possibility. The top two seem pretty set, but you went down at, to really who's ranked sixth. And the funny thing is, weirdly enough, it seems like freaking Gannon is hyping this guy up going into the draft. And it is a quarterback. It is an athletic quarterback that essentially busted all of Anthony Richardson's records that pushed Anthony Richardson to a top first round draft pick, which we all know is crazy anyways. But, well, and of course, Dan's like the over under on an Arkansas Razorback. But why did this guy make your list? What do you see?
Okay, we're talking about sleepers, right? We're talking about guys that may return some value, okay? And in the later rounds here, why not make a dart throw on an athletic quarterback, a guy that is more athletic than one, Anthony Richardson? And he put up okay production in 2025. Taylen Green, we're talking about, from Arkansas, completed 198 of 326, 60% completion percentage. Not too bad for a running quarterback. 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But where his magic happened: 140 carries, 777 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. He earned an 85 overall PFF grade. Not great, but he has that elite athleticism at quarterback. In the combine showed that a 4.36 40-yard dash, the fastest out of any quarterback this year, and a combine record 43-inch vert and a combine record 11-inch broad jump. So he showcased historic athleticism at the position. He led the, and ranking near, quarterback 4 or 5 for me based off of his rushing floor, and that's just upside I'm tailing right now in these later rounds, because that elite testing at the combine may put him on some maps, and he may get some draft capital for a team looking to take a dart throw. And we know that there's not a whole lot of high-end talent at quarterback, so they may see this as a development play and a guy that could maybe improve his passing. But yeah, give it a dart throw guy. I think Taylen Green has got some upside as an athletic quarterback. So why not see at that stage late in the game, get it a dart throw, and maybe a guy that could increase value if he gets a starter too. He's immediately going to get plugged into your lineup if he gets on a lineup and the starter goes down and he gets a chance to start. And we know what, rushing upside brings to fantasy lineups. So why not give it a little bit of a dart throw here for Taylen Green?
Mike, we're already on the show. We're already on the network. You don't have to brown nose your way.
I didn't. We're not talking about Mike Washington, so we're good. We already started talking about Tesla. I knew he made sure that Taylen Green was brought up earlier in the show rather than later. But
no. I'm just kind of moving around positions. It's not any particular order. Here. I will say, Taylen Green had a lot of measure. I think he's got a better accuracy profile than Anthony Richardson. Obviously, athleticism better. Sure, Anthony Richardson has this huge arm, but it doesn't matter if you have a huge arm if you can't hit, right? And and by that I mean hit your target downfield. But I think that Taylen Green was if he stays at Boise State and doesn't come to Arkansas, and this is me hating on my guys, if he doesn't come to Arkansas under Sam Pittman in an offense that couldn't really find its mojo with a Bobby Petrino, it's different. If at Boise, it was lights out. It was automatic, right? I think that narrative shifts a little bit. I think he definitely took a hit. I think that Arkansas couldn't move the football downfield, and they depended on him. From a fan, I watched the games and I'm like, this guy's going to get beat the heck up. Because every freaking time we need a first down, he's got to figure out a way to scramble and get us the first down so we can keep playing ball on the offensive side of the football. Like, he was like almost single-handedly that offense. And I would say this year he spent more time banged up. Last year it was even more so the case. So I do think his draft stock fell, whereas if he went into the draft last year, I think it would have been a little bit more significant. But I think he's going to have to. Like, if he gets a shot in the NFL, which is probably not going to happen, it's kind of like the Felipe Franks type deal, right? Like, if he's going to get a shot in the NFL, it's going to be by proxy. Like, somebody's going to have to get hurt at the right time, and the right layout's going to have for him to get field time. And then there's possibility. But I think it's definitely an uphill climb despite the measurables, which, like you said, Mike, were off the chart, which is crazy because you go to a draft like Anthony Richardson's draft, and they're like, oh my God, these measurables. And like, he beat everyone and nobody's even talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, forget Anthony Richardson for a second. And I've mentioned this every time Taylen Green gets mentioned. There's a reason why in my comp, he compares a lot to Logan Thomas when he was coming out as a prospect. This is a guy, yes, he's completely and utterly raw as a quarterback, but because he is so big and so naturally athletic, it would not surprise me if he would wind up becoming a tight end or a wide receiver, something of another position, whether he follows the Logan Thomas or the Terrell Pryor footprint, whatever the case may be. There's a reason why I am actually targeting Taylen Green in a lot of fourth round rookie mock drafts, because I do think this is the type of dude who can come in and maybe give you fantasy relevancy at a different position down the road. He's too big, too athletic to get kicked out of the NFL.
Yeah, they were saying at the combine, they were asking him if he'd change positions, but obviously he's going to say no when he wants to play quarterback. But if he gets drafted and a team says, hey, we're going to put you here on a couple formations, see how you run. And next thing you know, he's, could be the next Taysom Hill. Who knows where that could lead to, right? Maybe he's not as big, but I mean, obviously there's some opportunity for some pass catching, skills. They wanted him to run some of the wide receiver drills as well, which he said no to, obviously. But yeah, you never know. I think you nailed that, Dan. Yeah, I agree with that.
Joe Blocko in the chat said Packers next Malik project. The Packers would not be a bad spot for him to land, for it to unfold in a possibility for him to get some snaps. I'm not completely sold on Jordan Love. What about you, Bradley, as a Packers fan? Obviously, I know y'all put a lot of hope in that guy. Is he the guy, or would you be happy with Taylen Green going to the Packers?
I mean, the answer is yes and yes. I do think that Jordan Love is the guy, but at the same time, I think it's important to get that quarterback too. If you remember, Malik Willis isn't on the Green Bay Packers anymore, so they are looking for a quarterback too. And it did take time for Malik Willis to develop into, at least in a small sample, a capable NFL player for at least 10 quarters that we saw. So the reality is that any team is going to be tantalized by Taylen Green's athleticism. And if I'm him, I try to stay at quarterback from a financial perspective. You think about these backup quarterbacks getting paid $8 million, $10 million a year. I mean, that's like wide receiver 3 money, but you're going to have to fight and tooth and nail. He's locked up pretty much at quarterback for a long, long time. I mean, you think about Josh Johnson being in the league for 20 years? Like, these guys just stick around. Jacoby Brissett, he's holding out in camp right now. Like, these perennial backup quarterbacks are just sticking around. So yes, of course, if I'm his agent, I'm telling my guy, Taylen, hey, do not do anything to hurt your capability of just remaining a quarterback. At the same time, you think about so many people coming out and saying, like, we were around when Lamar Jackson was drafted. Like, is Lamar a running back? Is he a quarterback? We're not sure. And yes, they're different for sure. There's accomplishments. Don't get me wrong, but the point I'm making is that the positional value for a quarterback related to that particular player is very high. So they need to stay there. That's my take.
Fair enough. So we're gonna go to your next player who not very many stats laid out from combine or pro day, but a late round running back. And really these two guys, like he and his teammate, are viewed kind of like back to back in potential. Kaelon Black. Tell us why. What do you see that we haven't got the opportunity to really see?
It's less about what I'm seeing and more so the intrigue of what NFL teams want to see. This is a player who had 12 top 30 visits. Like, he was part of the national championship winning team, which means you get all of, like, the teams have seen him play. They know. But then they want to see even more. It was just, he was an outlier among all other running backs in terms of the amount of top 30 visits. It wasn't close. Like, you see maybe a couple wide receivers like Casey Concepcion gets double-digit visits. You get a few others that get, 6, 7, 8 visits. Mekhi Lemon makes his rounds. But I had to look up who this guy was a couple weeks ago because he was not even on my radar for like, okay, is Black going to even make a difference? 5.3 yards per carry, 79 PFF rush grade. He's 24 years old. He's got a solid BMI, but I'm intrigued because NFL teams may be intrigued. And that's what's leading me to, hey, we are less than a week from the draft. Teams are telegraphing. They get their 30 visits, but there's so many of them are spending it on a running back who is not getting the hype of a Jonah Coleman, is not getting the hype of, an Emmett Johnson, is not getting the hype of a Jadarian Price. Is Black going to be the next RJ Harvey? Like a surprise, like second or third round running back that we were expecting to be day 3 because everyone and their brother was mocking him that late and he surprises us. That's what signal I'm looking at. So I'm just putting that on people's radars. We're talking about sleepers and it's less about the data because his yards per carry, his PFF rush grade, they're okay. They're fine. He didn't catch passes in college. Like, there wasn't anything outrageous in terms of his testing. Like, you look up the metrics, there's not a lot there. So that's probably why teams want to get a closer look. But the fact that teams want to, they see something, they want to take a closer look. So that's why we should be also looking closer.
I think one of the things too is because you mentioned this national championship team, and the guys that we're looking at from that team are going to be pro ready because they're coming from a Cignetti offense. They're professionals. They've been, driven to study after every game. Like it was pretty clockwork for them. And I think that maybe Kaelon Black is a guy that they see as an option that could come in, pick up the pass protection right away, become a valuable, player, maybe in special teams as well, could carve out a role. And the next thing you know, he's on the field. And if an NFL team, like you mentioned, the top 30 visits, they're looking at him, and that is intriguing. So if an NFL team is looking at him, that's immediate fantasy value if they get drafted in a decent spot, like you mentioned there. So yeah, Bradley, I've been high on him as well, leading up to this point, and I think that you hit it there as well. If an NFL team's looking, then they got to be piquing our interest, even though his metrics aren't popping out. His tape didn't necessarily show me a ton of things. So yeah, I'm interested to see why. And then obviously the NFL is too. So they're curious, and he may surprise here with a team grabbing him.
He's a teacher's pet, Mike. You hit the nail on the head. He's going to do everything that the coach asks him to do. Like, coaches are constantly looking for backup running backs who can actually play special teams and do X, Y, and Z, all the little grunt work that we don't get to appreciate or don't get to love and don't get to see. And he's going to come in and going to be able to do all those things. He doesn't have a profile that projects well for a fantasy football player outside of somebody getting injured in front of him and getting a bunch of volume for one particular week. I don't think he's going to be much more than that. But at the same time, this is a guy who projects to be on a roster, who coaches project to love. I'm 100% with you guys that this is somebody who can kind of sit on the back end there.
What about like a Woody Marks of last year? He played 8 games. Like, he was manageable in that role, in that same draft capital range. You never know.
Here's the issue I have with the Woody Marks compare. Woody Marks was actually a good receiver coming out of USC. Caleb, for sure.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But the thing is that it just shows that a guy later in the rounds could get an opportunity right away, and especially if he makes an NFL roster like Kaelon Black is potentially going to do now. Yeah, that's immediate fantasy value and a dart throw in round 4. So yeah, keep it up.
So in the chat, BHS Cardinal said this is incredible. Top 30 visits is interesting, measurable. And then Try Hard coming up, right? This is heat. It is interesting. So like if your rookie drafts happen before the actual draft, before landing spot, before draft capital, if your rookie drafts happen then, which is like really the degenerates, right? You got to do your own prospecting, right? Like if you're in that realm, you have college profile, you have college performance, right? And then you start to look for like other measurables that may exist. And like, the thought of like top 30 visits, like this player gets this many visits with this many, teams, you have to like step back and go like, man, there might be something there. Like there has to be at least something there that if a team only gets so many prospects, this many teams prioritize this player, right? Which gives you the narrative that there could be. So like, it's an interesting measurable to look at, going into the draft. Now, obviously, post-draft, when we have those others, it'll be different. But I really enjoyed that, Bradley. Go ahead, Mike.
You mentioned, one thing about the measurables and seeing that play through. So yeah, I agree with that, and I think that seeing these top 30 visits opens up a really another can of worms here that we really got to consider the NFL part of this. We're thinking it through the fantasy lens, and we're thinking it through those types of metrics. And now we got to think about like through an NFL team, why they see it. And Dan mentioned earlier about the tight ends, and ones that could play inline, outline. They're going to get on the field early. They're going to get opportunity. They're going to play the routes. And then, you're seeing these teams move towards more of the 12 personnel where these tight ends are coming on more. So yeah, like this class is deep in tight end now too. So that's going to be a very interesting, next segment here. So yeah, I love this, guys. Keep it up. And back to you, Tyler.
No, dude, it's fun. I love digging into these prospects, like really love digging into these prospects and just the ways you could create separation.
One more thing to add to that. Sorry, you mentioned the rookie drafts that may be happening earlier on, and maybe there's a small percentage of people that, this information is valuable to right now. Well, no, because if you're in startups right now, there's a lot of startups going on in Dynasty that are actually, instead of, doing the kicker placeholders, you're actually drafting the rookies. And that's an interesting, one that I've come across already. I've done a startup where we weren't doing placeholder kickers. We were actually drafting these rookies. So that added a dynamic where, I did another startup and we were doing placeholders. So some of these rookies were going a little bit further down the board in the ones that we were actually drafting the players, because you don't really know the landing spots yet. So people are a little bit more cautious about, drafting the 106 or the 104, right? So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And, these conversations are great as far as getting our viewers the edge, getting into the draft. And then once the landing spots, we're going to get that other layer.
Yeah, 100%. Which, by the way, if Try Hard, you're saying this is heat, or like over on Twitch, you're saying you love the show, you can connect with us over on our very own sports only social media platform, Sellout Crowds. It is a home base for everything sports. All the content you want to consume, people that you want to talk to and talk ball with. You have scores, you have the box scores, you have the ability to sync in your fantasy teams and see your scores live during the year. It is home base when it comes to fantasy or just sports content. I don't know about you guys, but I hate social media. I literally only use it for sports. So this is my dream. Go to selloutcrowds.com, sign up today. It's free, and come hang out and talk ball with us. But on the other side of that, Dan, you've got a wide receiver. right outside or right around the 10 area and out of Clemson. I'm going to bring up the page from our rookie guy, which is, again, highlighted below. Go check it out. It is full of good stuff. Antonio Williams, Clemson. Tell me why I got to look at this guy.
Well, it's real funny because he's somebody that I wasn't sure I should put on the show sheet because he is going to be borderline in your rookie second round, third round, depending upon where he goes in the NFL draft. He's going to be right in that cusp of the area. There's a reason why I like Antonio Williams so much. First of all, I'm always a sucker for a guy who can get separation against man, especially against press man. Antonio Williams can actually do that, even though he played nearly 80% of his snaps in the slot. But he's really quick off the line, and he's not an undersized slot. So that's the other thing that's nice about Antonio Williams. We've been getting so many undersized slots over the past few years that they get a guy who's actually just a nudge under 6 foot, and 187 means he could actually play in 2 receiver sets. By the way, that's vitally important right now because the trend over the last 2 years is that teams are going away from 11 personnel, more multiple tight end sets, more 2 wide receiver sets. So you can't just have a true slot receiver and think of the PPR days of old when spread offense was supreme and think you're going to get a fantasy football player out of it. You need a guy who's going to be able to do both. Antonio Williams can do that. Clemson's offense was beyond putrid this past season. And yet Antonio Williams was able to give you 2.19 yards per route run. He was able to give you a 26% targets per route run, just under 16% target share. Remember how bad their quarterback play, okay, Klubnik, who was supposed to be the prospect, was absolutely trashed throughout the entire year. By the way, I was never a fan of Kate Klubnik to begin with, so that's part of the reason there. He doesn't get featured the way he should have been. He didn't get thrown the ball the way he should have been. The targets, a lot of them were off target, and that's what he kind of ran into a little bit. Now, Antonio Williams, he's not this player, but in the comp, he does come out to a little bit of a version of a Devonta Smith here for me. So he's able to actually win quickly on the outside. That's exactly what I'm looking for a guy who's going to be able to be versatile. Versatile is what I need in order for you to be a fantasy priority type of wide receiver. That's what Antonio Williams can definitely be. And if he can wind up on a team that still runs 11 personnel at least 65% of the time, let's say, he could very well find himself in a situation where he's making noise sooner rather than later, even if he winds up being more of a late day 2, early day 3 pick in the NFL draft.
Bradley, you're down there, and I'm just watching you as Dan's like dropping this monologue, this exposition on Antonio Williams, and you're like, yeah, like, you know, like you're just like nodding along. Like, are you just, is it the voice? Are you mesmerized by
Dan, this is the first time we've been on a show together, and your voice is it's special. I appreciate it. Let me tell you,
it's like the pendulum right in front of your eyes when you're getting.
I'm like, do I actually love Antonio Williams? Am I a believer? Have I just been? Yes, I'm in a trend right now. Like, Clemson quarterback sucks. Yes, Antonio Williams is amazing. What am I doing? I must draft him. Like, get some NFL GMs to watch the show, and they'll be in trance too. I agree with you on a lot of things. The versatility one is underrated. He spent most of his time in the slot this year, but 40% of the time he was out wide, in 2024. And so you see, like, throughout his time in college that he crushed. And then, what's not really talked about, his like counting stats were down from 24 to 25, but he missed pretty much all of weeks 1, 2, and 3, like relative to the previous year. His PFF grades went up, like, his touchdowns went down. But again, as you mentioned, the offense was terrible. So, like, I want to see these like behind the scenes metrics improving every year. And that's what Antonio Williams has shown me. So I like it. Thanks, Dan.
I think for me with Antonio Williams is like you mentioned it right then and there. He's got to form fit on a team where he's going to be able to play the outside a little bit and not be, relied in that slot role, getting it on a team that plays a lot more 11 personnel, like you said. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I think that that's a great fit. And, some teams could really benefit from an Antonio Williams. And as long as he's not on a team that is going to favor those 12 or 13s that are starting to pop up a lot more frequently now.
Could he be like a Josh Palmer type of player? Like not a comp, not like physically they're different, but
so to be honest, like he had a lot
usage, maybe
usage. Yeah, he had a lot of really favorable comps. Like even like I wouldn't put him in like necessarily like an article that I'm writing, right? But like Amon-Ra St. Brown popped up as a comp for like a guy like this because he is a little bit of a bigger body slot. Now, he doesn't quite have the strength of an Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's kind of the difference here. But let's not forget, St. Brown went in the 4th round of these drafts, and he was also a guy who was heavy slot but could get open quickly versus press man coverage. That is the key now, especially with the way the teams are playing.
So Bradley, in our rookie guide, we compared him to his comp was Jayden Reed. So what are your thoughts there on that? Do you like that comp for Antonio Williams being, a Packer diehard? Is that fall in line?
Interesting. I would have to look closer. Maybe you guys can tell me if there were more. Jayden Reed, to me, yes, he's like dynamic down the field, but there's a lot of like manufactured touches for that type of player. Did Antonio Williams have that type of usage in Clemson?
I think that's more of a Klubnik issue than Antonio Williams' capabilities issue.
It's possible.
Let's obviously that plays a part into it, and you can always make the debate of if somebody's on a different team, does it look different for them? If they have somebody else different throwing to them, does it look different for them? And I think that is a piece for him. So you got Tryhard in there agreeing though. I'm tired of 5'10" slots. So excited to see somebody that can play in the slot, just a little bit bigger body. And then IBT Media, thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure if you're listening, hit the like and sub, and appreciate you tuning in. So we've got 10 minutes here. You've each got one player left. One player left to give the heat, to drop it out for the listeners, to let them know how they're going to win their drafts this season. Okay? So we're going to essentially have like 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes at most with the tie-in at the end to get these guys out. So we're going to start here with let's go with Mike, because Mike, we were talking about tight ends. Your final pick is a tight end. He's a tight end that I'm actually intrigued with. So break it down for us. Why are you big on Max Klare?
Well, he's my tight end 3 right now for a couple reasons. He did flash a little bit. It was hard to see last year being, clouded behind that Ohio State's loaded offense. And why would you throw to a tight end, when you got the receivers they have there? But still managed 43 receptions, 448 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 yards per carry. But what I'm looking for here as a blocker, showed some goodness there, can be well-rounded when you look at his days in Purdue, and that's what I was looking at here. He was far more featured there. He led the team in receiving, 51, 685 for 4 in 2024. He was a full-time player in run situations there too. So he wins beyond just that traditional tight end as well. So I like what I see out of him, and I think that a team is also going to like that. Decent size, 6'4", 246. So he's not like a huge tight end, but he can bring some dynamic blocking as well. Good hands. Didn't test at the combine, but I think that could slide into the top, maybe even the second round in dynasty drafts, in rookie drafts, if the draft capital is going to come the way I think I see it here, because he's a well-rounded guy that has shown, some pass catching chops. So I want to hear maybe some of you guys think about Max Klare.
So Mike, I got to know, and if your thoughts, like obviously much different usage in Purdue.
Yeah.
Is his usage shift? Do you believe it is a design, or like as far as like an offensive design, or do you believe that is a talent gap between a Purdue team and an Ohio State team as to why his production may have differed. And this is key for like anybody that's thinking about taking this guy, because it's kind of like does he have it, or was it just because he was playing at Purdue?
I think he was just playing at Purdue, but also I think that, you know, he's going to Ohio State too, whereas like the talent competition there is quite a bit more for a pass catcher. So you're not going to be as featured. You know, they didn't have as good of wide receivers. Like, why wouldn't you throw to your better pass catcher if he's a tight end, right? Where there's no reason to throw to a tight end in Ohio State. So it was an interesting move for him to go there, maybe because he wanted to chase a national championship. That might have been what he was going for, you know, maybe securing some better draft capital as a tight end, showing that he can block as well. Maybe that is a case, right? So we'll see. But a guy that I got my eye on, interested to see what Dan thinks about Max Klare, because you guys broke down the tight ends on your show that dropped today and is doing very well. So what were your guys' thoughts on Max Klare?
Yeah, so Max Klare came into the balanced tight end archetype first and foremost. And he's the type of guy that you're going to be able to get him on the field 24/7. And that's not always the most beneficiary thing for fantasy football necessarily, but he is a guy that we know he has more athleticism because of what he was able to do previous in his collegiate career. And what comes into play for a guy like Max Klare is competition is real. Teammate score is real. Carnell Tate is not my number one wide receiver on my board because of his raw production profile. There's a lot going on in Ohio State. There's a lot of mouths to feed. So Max Klare is a guy who could come in. He could do a little bit of everything. I think he's going to get an opportunity to start early. The question is, how early is the NFL team who drafts him going to allow him to play a significant pass routing role? Now, we talked about this a little bit on the show, and one of the concerns that we have is, could he turn into a Dawson Knox type where, look, you're a decent enough blocker, we get a more athletic tight end to play with you? Because part of what I didn't mention in the last segment that we were talking about is that while these teams are playing more tight ends, they're not doing it in the way that we did it in the early 2000s, where it was two tight ends because they wanted more blockers on the field. It's two tight ends because they want one extra blocker and the other tight end to replace the slot wide receiver. So that's where it's going to get a little bit tricky with Max Klare. Does the team recognize that this guy is actually a fluent pass catcher and allow him to play that way? I think he could be a Mason Taylor type, but Mason Taylor got screwed because he went to the freaking Jets. But Max Klare is right now a fourth pick, a fourth tight end on my big board right now.
Beauty.
All right, dude. I love the late round tight ends. Moving pretty quick. Bradley, you had a late round running back potential here out of a team that vastly was bad last year. But why? Tell us who and why.
Why? Seth McGowan. Yeah. So I'll take a step back for just a second. My philosophy, once you get into round 3 and beyond of your rookie drafts, is just hammer running back. So that's embodied by the philosophy of all three of my picks. They're very different types of running backs. But Seth McGowan, 91st percentile speed score, 99th percentile burst score. He has had at least 18 receptions each of the last 2 seasons. And, you know, we talk about tough competition. Kentucky's in the SEC. They play Georgia. They play Texas. They play Florida. They play Ole Miss. They play tough competition. And that's why Seth McGowan transferred from New Mexico State to Kentucky so that he could play against tougher teams. You love to see it. Now, then you're like, well, but Bradley, we look at his stats. He really tailed off near the end of the year. Like, what happened? And Seth McGowan suffered two pretty significant injuries. He was injured, in Georgia, the Georgia game, and then injured against Texas. And both of those injuries cost him significantly, both from an efficiency perspective and from just a production perspective. So both, I think it was important for him to crush the combine, and he did. And so you have at least a little bit of production, and you have the combine. And then, I think that's also interesting that he gets a visit with the Chicago Bears. He gets a top 30 visit. So hats off to him. But yeah, I think that this is a player who has wanted to get better. He went to jail. Did y'all know this, right? He went to jail in 2021. Yeah, this is wild. Tyler's like, come on.
Is that
No, I'm just dying because like you're pumping this guy up, but then at the same time you're like, oh, he fell off at the end of the year. Oh, he had injuries. Oh, did you know he went to jail? But he got
This
one
is how hard
top
Seth McGowan has worked to get back to where he's at.
got 1/3 top 30 visit. Hit the draft button, bro.
It's not zero. It's not zero. Let's go, guys.
Look. I have to say, when I thought you were going a totally different way. When you were like, oh, he fell off towards the end of the year, I was like, yeah, because Kentucky freaking gave up. They were like, we're out, bro. Like, we're on to next year. And then you're like,
No.
he had injuries. Like,
He was serving parole on every other Sunday, so he was.
he couldn't
Either of the games,
he had to,
right?
like do the trash thing on the side of the road. You know, like, no, that's awful. I'm sorry, repentance. No, I do like that you pulled some good
This is
things out.
unraveled so quickly, guys.
Look, hey,
Is that what
we asked for deep sleepers, deep. I believe you may have just went the deepest. Like that guy is going to be one of those you don't draft. You get him on waivers.
You're gonna be
after
like,
the draft.
wait, he was
He's
drafted in
free.
the 6th round, and you're gonna be like, oh, Bradley said that, yeah.
Yeah, dude, let's go. I hope so. No, I love it. No, this is what the show's about. You know what I mean? Bringing the heat, bringing stuff that other people aren't thinking about, being willing to get out there and make a call, whether good or bad, on a player, and that's awesome. You know, like, could he be there? I mean, the 99% burst rate, like I was like, okay. You know, like I think in the NFL, that's one of the things that misses so much is if people can burst through a hole, right? Like, and so like I like that. I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. There's a couple other things, you know, but we'll see. So kind of trying to get through here in the next like 2 minutes here. Dan, you've got our last guy, Adam Randall. Why?
well?
What's the reason?
First of all, I'm going to trump his Seth McGowan because Adam Randall's going to go later in the draft and Seth McGowan's going to go. So even deeper than that. But look, this is a 6'2", 235 running back out of Clemson who is a converted wide receiver. He had 49 targets last season. This is not the most efficient guy in the world, but he comps to a Zamir White, an Ollie Gordon, a Darrington Evans. Are those names sexy? Absolutely freaking not. But you know where they did get drafted? In the 4th round. Adam Randall right now is projected to get drafted in the 6th round of the NFL. And I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, look, you could be a baby Ramondre Stevenson, a bigger running back who's actually pretty good catching the ball out of the backfield and therefore giving you a fantasy football floor as a result. Still 4.8 yards per attempt. He's still learning the position. Again, I cannot iterate enough. This last year was his first year as a running back, and he was 6'2", 235 at Clemson playing wide receiver, and they just converted him to running back. So when we're looking at receptions and targets, which are worth a 1.5 more than a carry is on a per average basis in fantasy football, this is the type of guy who might be able to slip in there and give you a little bit more upside than you were necessarily looking at before. So Adam Randall, if you want to go deep, if you have 5 rounds in your rookie draft, if you can pick him up off after the draft and put him on the taxi squad, that's absolutely a route that you can do.
This is it. I love it.
230.
That's what the people need.
He's a monster. And this show is brought to you by Dan's love for Clemson and Bradley's love for the Packers and Tyler's love for the Razorbacks and I guess my love for North Dakota. Let's go.
Pause there. When you're talking about, I got to end on my Razorbacks. You're talking about 235. How about 228 and 6'2"? And a 4.3 40 and Mike Washington. Wasn't even on the radar. No, look, hey.
We can't get through a show without Mike Washington being mentioned.
Yeah.
Take the shirt off. Look, it's draft season, baby. Okay? It's coming. Rookie drafts are coming. Hope you're ready to make your selections. Make sure you go over to Sellout Crowds, pop in, drop your questions in. We'll try to help you win your drafts. But that's what we're here for. Click the like button on the video. Appreciate you tuning in. Be here next week, 9:00 Central. We will be live with some draft, with a little bit of draft recap here. But more than that, tune in to the FSA and YouTube channel. We're going to have live draft coverage. Dan, Mike, Bradley, I know all three of you are going to be gracing the stage as we cover night one of the draft, as we give you real player breakdowns, draft position analysis, draft capital, where they land, what the outlook's going to determine for your fantasy league so you can get ahead early, because I can guarantee you your homies that are playing with you probably aren't going to be getting the information that we're going to be dropping unless you tell them about the show, which will be a nice thing for you to do. But we understand if you're selfish and you want to do that too. But anyways, make sure you're here next week, 9 o'clock. Make sure you're here for the whole draft coverage. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next week. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com